Hey everybody, Tony Morrison here with GLAAD, with Sony Music Group, talking icons with MK XYZ, the baddie herself. How are you? How is your year? Tell me.
I'm great. I'm incredible. The year has been yearing.
The
year has been
The
yearing.
year has been yearing. I love it.
You know, I'm taking things day by day, moment by moment, and just like trying to practice living in the present and not so future forward in a space where it's like, I gotta have everything in line, in my control.
Yeah.
Just going with the flow, you know?
Okay, well, we're gonna get into all of that in a second, but share with me a little bit about the artist. Who is MK and her XYZ?
The flyest poppy in town. MK, I'll start off by introducing my name because I'm sure a lot of people are like, you know, what is MK XYZ? So MK is short for Michaela, which is my government. Please don't tell anybody. And then the XYZ is the unknown variable because I feel like there are these things about myself that I'm constantly developing and learning, and I'm learning that I can't box myself into different spaces that, and like, just not taking too little space, but just taking up space and what that means to me. And it's a community. So the XYZ also represents this like community, but, and that's a lot of my artistry too.
What moment was that unboxing for you in that life and being able to give that otherness a name for you, especially as an artist?
I think that for me, it's about feeling seen and being seen and seeing others and recognizing them and recognizing and having familiarity. But I feel like as a young person, I came out when I was 14. My mom's Black, my dad's Filipino, so I grew up in split households, you know, in the South, in a Christian family. So for me, there wasn't a lot of being seen by peers, by friends, by different people. It's like I was there, but it was almost like there was always the question of, what are you? Who are you? Where are you from? You know, like all these different questions that were constantly being thrown at me, and this desire for other people to try to make that make sense, like a formula, if you will. And I always knew, like when I came out at 14, that all those things didn't make sense to me. And I had this desire to figure out within myself, like, who am I to me? How do I want to show up in the world? How do I want to present myself? What gets me excited? What makes me feel like I'm living? What makes me feel like I'm in my most authentic version of myself, which is so key.
Yeah.
You know, it's like living in your truth, walking your truth. And I felt like the XYZ gave acknowledgement to that. And it's like, I feel the need to bring awareness to that part of myself.
And I can just feel the conviction as you are saying that.
Conviction.
There it is. You know, I've arrived.
Absolutely.
And it's so freeing for yourself from letting other people define who you are.
Yes. Oh, yes. You know, I think that it's a lot of dismantling that's happened for me. It's a lot of, okay, what does it mean to be a woman? What does it mean to be a Black woman? What does it mean to be an Asian woman? All these things that are called of you, all this role playing, if you will, and all these constructs, and just dismantling them. And reprogramming myself the way that I feel most comfortable.
I think there's a level of acceptance, too, of just accepting that you are also all of these things. How's that experience been for you?
It's interesting because it's still informed by, like, things that I'm socialized to and, like, experiencing, like, if it's on social media, if it's family, whatever, like, I'm always, like, still being in that energy and around them, and so it's like I've had to acknowledge it, but I'm also like learning that I am my own person in a lot of ways too. It's interesting to, like, in other words, to go through this journey as a queer person, but also acknowledging that, like, it's because I'm like not ever trying to dismiss and forget that all of this kind of encapsulates me as a person.
Yeah. Well, speaking to a multi-identitied individual,
Absolutely.
baddie, I should say.
Baddie.
Being a music artist was not always on your bingo card. I've read you've done a few different things, but walk me through just exploring that part of yourself in your craft.
So my it's important to note. So my mother was a dancer. She was an entertainer. And so was my father. He was a break dancer. So, I mean, I saw that it was giving, like, we're dancers, step up, like, you know? But when I was growing up, they were always introducing me to, like, my dad was the first person to introduce me to hip hop. My mom was the first person, I feel like, to introduce me into dance, specifically ballet, hip hop. So it was always around me. Like, it was just more like a musical family. And then I have uncles who are also producers as well. So for me, I feel like I was gifted. I don't know if it's the genetics. I don't know if it, I always just say God's gift, but I took it on naturally, and it was something that I was passionate about. I was subconsciously, like, practicing, like, I feel like I've been in artist development my entire life. Like, my mother has been that person. That. She's like that kind of dance mom, where it's like, when you think of dance moms, she's like that kind of mom, where she's like, by the way. Do it again. It wasn't giving what it was supposed to give, do it again. Like, and she's been really hard on me in terms of, like, putting the pressure and, like, the seat that I want to sit in, making me realize that, okay, are you ready to sit in the seat though? Which is a big thing. But both of my entire family has done that. Yeah. So for me, music was always present. And being an artist was just, I don't even think I had to be. Sure. I think I just existed in the space. From, like, I remember as a kid writing scripts and, like, trying to shoot and, like, around with kids in the neighborhood. And then, like, dancing, putting on, like, little recitals in the house, like, performing and stuff like that. Yeah. And then I also went to an art school. So it's just always been around me, and it's something that I never, like, I feel like there's a difference between a gift and a talent. And I feel like it was a gift. Like, I just never, like, people will always ask me, they're like, MK, like, how long have you been dancing? Like, how many classes have you taken? Like, who have you? I'm like, none, nothing. Not, like, I just, I do what I do. And from that, I feel like it always was with me until I went to school. So when I feel like around middle school, high school, that's when I got really invested into science. I was just excelling into it, excelling at it. And then eventually I went on to college. I majored in biology. And I had a lot of scholarships, and I had a lot of queer scholarships for going to school too. Shout out to y'all. Okay. But that was, like, the birthplace for, like, social media for me, and, like, connecting with it, and, like, creating who I am on social media, and just sharing that with the world, like, just showing up every day, totally. Whatever outfit, whatever I ate that day, what I did in college with my friends. And eventually it was like I saw that people were identifying with me, and they were like, oh, like, and I was sharing my music, like, I was writing music, I was singing, I was doing covers and all that stuff. And then on Instagram, I was like, okay, like, I kept being shifted into this, like, I wasn't, like, trying to be it. Like, I wasn't trying to be, like, I want to be this and this and this and this. Like, but naturally, everyone who was around me, they're like, you have something. You're a star, kid. Like, you're a star. And recognizing that, I'm on this journey of personal legend, and, like, seeking that and fulfilling that.
I love that. And you're ever transformational.
Yes.
Right? And making sure, yeah, absolutely. Take me back real quick to that first TikTok or Instagram video.
Ooh, I remember.
Not only to ask what that experience was, but that first experience of response from that community, that sense of maybe belonging. What was that experience, that first return of just like, oh, I've got something here?
It was unintentional. I was leaving I feel like it was like this, it's like a queer, there's a group in Charlotte, North Carolina, that does like it's like outreach. Mm-hmm. It's like a nonprofit organization, but they're doing like outreach for like queer youth. And I met a friend through there, and we're sitting in the car, like, just hanging out. And there's this video of us, like, at the time, they call it thirst trapping. And I feel like now it's evolved to just existing on TikTok. Like, true. But at the time, like, they call it thirst trapping. On Instagram, though. Like, TikTok is very different. But, like, on Instagram, it was like, oh, are they thirst trapping? And I didn't even know what that was. But, like, we're just sitting in the car, and I'm recording this video. And she's, like, masked, and we're both, like, just chilling, recording the video, and we posted on Instagram, and the next thing you know, all these girls are in the comments. Like, I wish we would look at each other like that. Like, I wish somebody would look at me like that. And I was like, oh, like they think that we're like together and like.
And it's like, oh, those are the comments.
Yeah, like
wow.
I didn't expect that. Like I was just like, it's like, look at my shoes, and then you put that on Instagram. You don't think anything of it, but I remember that was like one of the first things I ever posted, aside from like dance content. And then I was seeing a mix. It was like people who love to hear my voice, people who love to watch me dance. But then I think that most of the support that was coming in very early were people who were like, I've never seen like a Black Asian queer person who is like hyper mask and lives in that energy, but also loves makeup and loves like just that balance. It was always like, everyone's always like, you have the perfect balance of like masculine and feminine energy, and I've just shared that.
But they're again to say, I am all these things.
All these things, all
and
of
that
it.
you can be.
All of it, yeah.
What would you describe your craft or vibe as? Because I feel like when I say craft, I can see like, oh, well, which one?
Yes, yes. I'm like, wait, I gotta compartmentalize.
From your words, what would you describe as who is MK as an artist and the vibe?
Interesting that you say that in this time, because what I've come to realize is it's this super queero person.
Yes.
This super queero being. I feel like, for a long time I was searching like for my own language to make it make sense for me, and I felt like that was the best one. As someone who grew up loving like Marvel and DC, and like I'm big on superheroes, villains, and just fantasy. And I was just like, the way that makes me feel, and the way that they, whether it's them saving someone or making them realize that you're okay to be imperfect, or to have different sides of you that are multifaceted. I was like, oh, but it's cute because it's like queero, superhero. Like.
And this is something also like that the community gave to you,
yes,
right?
Yes.
I mean, that's incredible to kind of be gifted from our community that sort of descriptor.
Yeah, big responsibility. That's what it feels like. But I feel like it's like a new birth of myself. It feels like that. And like I said, it's very transformational, but that word holds a lot of power for me right now.
Being a queer and young artist in music, what has that been like, that experience for you? Has it exceeded your expectations? What has that holistically been like for you? A lot, because no one prepares you for the journey of an artist. Like, even though you can practice, you can sing, you can do all these things, but when you decide to be at the forefront, there's nothing like it, You're always like, yeah, I think I'm ready for this. Yeah. Like, are you really ready though, girl? I'm like, but I feel like I've been able to be a student and a teacher to so many people in the industry. A lot of people that I've gotten the chance to work with and who've gotten the chance to work with me. There's a lot of things that, I've learned about myself. There's a lot of things that have made me reevaluate values, morals, and also my queerness, because, when I first came in, my queerness looked one-dimensional to me. Yeah. And I was like, you know what, I can feel safe exploring my femininity in my way and presenting that to the world and not having to justify or validate any of it. But I also can have that comfort as well on the other side, and knowing that there's a spectrum in between that's there to hold you and to support you and uplift you through it all. What would you say to people, especially to young people, young artists especially, who are maybe a little hesitant or just shy to just unlock who they are?
Biggest thing is being forgiving to yourself. I literally just said this yesterday. I feel like to the people who are also learning you when you decide to come out to yourself, because I think people are always they always say, oh, you're coming out to other people. I think it's a lot of you coming out to yourself and recognizing different things in yourself at different points in your life.
Big time.
So I think the biggest thing that I would say is to be forgiving. Like, don't feel pressure to figure all these things out at once. Like, everything is constantly evolving. I don't feel the same way I did at 14 as I do now.
Yeah.
I don't, even in my queerness, I don't look at relationships the same way that I did then as I do now. So, you know, be kind to yourself take your time, breathe, have space for breath, you know, and always constantly reevaluate, because mental health is so important to me, but always take time to reevaluate, like, where are you? Yeah. Okay. Think about it and don't run from that. Don't be afraid to be alone in your thoughts and take time to really think about, okay, how do I feel? Am I happy? Am I content? Do I feel like I'm in my truth?
And also that gratitude for where you've been.
Yeah.
Getting to the present.
Yeah.
And thank you for contextualizing that, because, you know, we love to say and really drive home at GLAAD, like, there is no one journey or one way to become yourself. So just to hear you contextualize that is power.
Yes.
Speaking of, when you hear the word icon, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Ooh. First word, fearless. And the second is freedom. And I kind of look at it hand in hand, because all of the icons that I've looked up to, there's a sense of fearlessness in who they are and how they show up. And that has created freedom. And I think ultimately, that's what we all want.
Yeah.
You want to feel your freest, or you're on the journey to get there. And a part of, you know, identity is also in that, feeling free.
Who are some of these iconic people in your life?
I'll mention one that it's so funny because I've recently gotten close to Kehlani a lot as a queer artist. Wow. There's so many to list, because I've also just got hip to like OGs back in the day, like Bessie Smith, Ma Rainey, and other people. But yeah, Kehlani recently, I wanted to mention her because, you know, because I was flying to New York and she's like, "Where are you headed?" And I was like, "New York." Yeah, New York, the big app. But no, she's been one that I've looked up to a lot, because I feel like she's been a trailblazer, you know, for us now in this time, but also has recently become a great friend as someone who is queer and has been very successful. Like, there's been a lot of times where she's reached back and she's like, "Hey, I know what it's like right now. Like, how are you? Are you good?" Just offering advice and being like a listening ear. But there's so many. Like, one of my favorite idols of all time is Queen Latifah. That's so funny because she played Bessie Smith. T. That's the T. But no, but and having to be able to meet her, I met Janelle Monáe, and just sharing how I felt.
Love Janelle.
The list goes on, but it's really an honor to be able to also, in my artistry, be able to meet them and to say thank you. Because there's a lot of, like, for them, almost like, you know how they say being the guinea pigs in certain things? It's like, I feel like a lot more safe and comfortable to walk into certain places. And then there's certain things where, you know, and they're also passing on the torch, where it's like, hey, you know, this is the role that we play. This is also like, you know, do it through love also. Yeah. So yeah.
I love that. And, you know, when we talk about representation, visibility, belonging even, do you feel like you are that representation you didn't have coming up in the world?
Yes. Yes, in different ways, that even the people that I look up to, like, I've learned that when it comes to at least media in general, but I'll never forget, like, the first time that I felt like I had ever seen somebody that remotely looked like me was Moana. I was like, oh my gosh, like, okay, Disney.
Yeah,
you know, like, we look alike.
Yeah.
But other than that, I don't think I had ever seen anyone that captured my essence. Who was Black, who was Asian, who Southern roots, you know, who also went to school for, like, I just never had anyone that, like, when I looked up to them, it was like, okay, like, I see me in you. And I think that recently that's been brought to my attention by so many queer Filipinos, so many queer Black people, and just the BIPOC community in general, the BIPOC queer community, just like recognizing, like, oh my gosh, I see you. Like, this is the first time that I'm like seeing somebody who looks like me, who's also on these platforms and with a voice, you know?
And speaking of, I love this genre term, Blasian pop. It's so good. What to you is the future of Blasian pop?
Transparency.
Ooh.
Transparency. That's been a big thing, because I feel like it's something that I haven't seen much of. It's like you see queer icons, but sometimes the storytelling, like, you want more storytelling.
Right.
You want to hear more stories. I want to hear trans stories. I want to hear genderqueer stories. Like, I want to hear, but beyond me, you know? It's like I want to see people walking in their truth, like I said, but voicing it. And whatever that looks like, you know? It doesn't have to be grandiose. Like, it could be whatever you feel it. But for me, that's what that is. I think a part of me showing up is like one part of it, but the other half of it is telling the story. And that takes time, because I feel like the best storytellers are the people who live. So I have to keep living, and I have to keep experiencing, and I have to feel them in all its entirety to communicate that and translate that through sonics.
Period.
Point blank.
Thank you for your transparency, honestly, because it starts with us and these conversations like this. So thank you. And it's going to inspire people to do the same, and that's what it's all about.
Thank you.
Good.